Well, hi, everybody. A very pleasant Tuesday evening to you. It's Steve Dolan here on EastCountySports.com, along with Ramon Scott, who's putting this show together from EastCountySports.com. And also glad to have with us, of course, Adam Paul from EC Preps. Well, guys, a lot's been happening in the last couple of weeks and all. The latest news that's coming up, of course, is the fact that by next Monday, the CIF is going to let us know for sure in the state of California what's going on as far as fall sports. Talk to somebody from the CIF just within the last day or two. Three possibilities. I'm going to talk about football. One is that the season starts on time, August 21st, on my 65th birthday. No chance. Second possibility, the season starts a few weeks late. Slim chance. Third possibility they're talking about now is a 12-week season starting in January. And by 12-week season, what they're talking about is where you would have your 10-week regular season. Playoffs would only be 2 weeks, top 4 teams in each division, not just the open division, but every division. Now, Adam Paul, what do you think of all this that's going on these days?
Well, I honestly don't see how it starts on time with everything that's going on. I mean, you have the San Diego Unified basically saying that we're doing distance learning for the first couple months. Grossmont District is going to be coming out with their plan. Supposedly, it's 1 or 2 days in class and the rest on social distancing, distancing at home. I mean, supposedly, I don't know if that's 100% guaranteed, but that's the plan that I've heard and read. It's gonna be really interesting. I mean, San Marcos Pop Warner today just canceled their season for both Pop Warner football and cheer. I mean, wow. Poway had already canceled theirs. So I don't know. I mean, unless we get a miracle vaccine next couple months, I don't foresee sports for quite a while.
No, I'm with you, Ramon. What's your take on all this?
I almost want to apologize for all my optimism over these last few months since we started these shows. Not Dolan's Dugout, but since we've been talking about the pandemic. But, yeah, I think what's happened over the last 7 to 10 days has brought down the optimism a little bit. I don't think that the demographics of people that are affected by the pandemic have changed necessarily. I know that younger people are getting ill, but they don't fall as ill as those at-risk groups. So I want to proceed. I think we all should proceed and just try to take precautions for those people, and those people need to take their own precautions. But as far as it relates to how we're going to proceed to going back to school, if we're having distance learning, doesn't necessarily mean we can't have sports. And I don't think that those contact sports should necessarily feel like they're more at risk because they're contacting each other, because I think there's a lot of talk and discussion about how younger people maybe not as affected by COVID-19. I think it's evident that people that are older, they're young, their lungs are older, people who have susceptible lungs, respiratory systems, immune systems, those are the people that are affected. And athletes can get it. We're seeing dozens of athletes throughout all the major sports getting COVID-19. They usually go into seclusion for 14 days, sometimes less. As soon as they get like 2 tests negative, then they're kind of released to go back. Most of them say they don't have any residual effects. So we know that athletes are really strong and not as susceptible to getting really ill against this, but just the writing on the wall, what happened with the community colleges, and now seeing how San Diego Unified, LA Unified, it almost looks like California, because of this spike or out of abundance of precaution, is a little bit slower in kind of ramping up the school year compared to some of these states. But we're at a very cautious time because of this spike. So
yeah, New Mexico has already canceled all their high school sports for the fall. And yet when I think of places way up there, the Wyomings and the North Dakotas and those places, they're not that much affected. I would imagine they're going to go on with it. But again, our big question is what's going to happen here. As you know, practice will be starting fairly soon for the fall sports. But just so many questions out there. And again, the whole thing was San Diego Unified. And just to clarify, of course, Christian out here in East County, they are in a city league, but they are not part of San Diego Unified. As of right now, as you know, I attend Shadow Mountain Community Church. They are still planning on starting in class in August. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because right now that is the plan at Christian. I've heard also other places, some of the private schools like Cathedral Catholic, they're most likely thinking about it too. I will say one thing, it's funny, because if you're sending a child to one of those schools and you're paying that kind of money, you would hope they're in class. It's kind of like college now. We know the whole thing, they're talking about like at Harvard, it costs you $50,000 to go there. Well, if you're paying $50,000, you want to pay $50,000 to go to online, because of course a big part of college and high school too is the socialization. It's the three of us getting together on campus, not just talking here on the internet.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you saw the article that I think it was in the Union Tribune. These private schools got some of that PPP money somehow, because they're considered small businesses, so they're not doing so well. People are bailing from the private schools because they've lost their job or whatever. They can't afford the almost $20,000, if not more, in tuition. Because at first when I'm reading that article, I'm like, how the heck does a private school even qualify, for one of those small business loans? I mean,
same way the LA Lakers did.
Yeah, it's so weird, but that wasn't my point being.
I got you.
From talking to a couple people that know the private schools pretty well, they said, yeah, it's really interesting, because a lot of people are bailing. Like you said, they can't afford the tuition or whatever. So it's gonna be really interesting. So hopefully, like you said, hopefully they have people that can't afford that tuition, whatever it may cost.
Yeah, sure. And Steve, last week when we were with Karen, we talked about how the governor had handed down some more regulations to close some of the businesses, and we're just 3 hours away now from yesterday's regulations edict, if you will, that we're going to be shutting down more businesses here starting tomorrow. So that hurts the economy as well. A lot of those dining establishments, salons, indoor businesses. So that was a bummer too. And I think that this chain of events just makes it look more difficult to get things rolling for the school year on campuses, especially talking about, we're going to go 1 day a week, 3 day a week, or 5 days a week. Funny, we're still getting together for practices and workouts for the most part. Helix did cancel a practice yesterday because of that naval fire. The smoke's been blowing.
Yeah, so did El Cap.
Okay,
Yeah.
And so
that
was separate, but it's just part of 2020, right? One day after another, something crazy happens.
Yeah. Gosh, who knows? It's interesting because I actually have neighbors who work in the Navy, and one of them was down at that ship, and it's like, oh my goodness, what's going on down there? But like you say, it just seems to fit right in with 2020, because who knows what's going to happen? I mean, going back to the high schools, I mean, it just here we are. I mean, and it's funny how you keep pushing deadlines back too. It's going to be like beginning of July, we'd know, middle of July, we'll know, end of July, we'll know. And you think of the high schools, and you think of like college football now, where you've already had the Big Ten and the Pac-12 going to conference only. That's going to happen other places. Hawaii loses 4 games because they were going to play some of those teams, and now they're going to play Robert Morris. But again, the chances of, let's go to college football, I'm just not sure how you're going to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe if anything, it looks like, and it's kind of funny how the demographics and politics work out. I mean, the SEC might be the conference moving forward to try to get a season off, considering their base, if you will. But,
I don't know.
hey,
Commissioner Sankey came out the other day, and he wasn't really sure on that. I mean, I don't know. Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, the SEC is going to play." I don't know if that's 100% sure on that one.
No.
Listening to Paul Feinbaum, the guy who knows pretty much SEC football and whatnot, he wasn't 100% sure on that. And when he says that, I listen.
Yeah, so Feinbaum knows what he's talking about, Adam. And I mean, the thing is, Sankey even said that his concern was very, very high. One thing I heard, though, on KUSI News tonight, on their news, I thought was really interesting, though, because obviously we're talking about a health issue with COVID. Okay, now we're shutting down gyms where people go work out, get better, get health. But you can go out and buy cigarettes and liquor, which are killers. That's good for your health. I thought that little bit of contradiction there. And as you know, some of the gyms are saying now they're going to close tomorrow. They're going to open back up Thursday. They're going to file a lawsuit. But I don't know how that's going to go because, last time the nail salons tried to do it. And I guess, the governor, for better or for worse, is kind of like a dictator. What he says goes.
Yeah, but they got a big time lawyer, from my understanding. Who knows how to go against these things? So I wouldn't necessarily rule them out of anything. Also, some of these gyms are going to get creative and do outside.
Well, that's one thing. It's funny you say that because there's a place up here where I live in Alpine called Chick Boutique. Mm-hmm. On the Loving Alpine Facebook page, the guy actually said, "Hey, I've got space here if you want to bring your, your haircut business, your nail business, and do it outside. Because theoretically, when I need this in a couple of weeks, I can get it cut outside, but just not inside. Just like Saturday night, we were talking before the show, like the big churches like Shadow Mountain in El Cajon. What they did, they've been doing outdoor services, but you could go in. Wimps like me went in the air conditioning, but now this Saturday you can't do it. Go in the air conditioning, you have to stay outside. But what they've done is they've moved services to 7 o'clock Saturday night, 7 o'clock Sunday night outdoors because you have to be outdoors, but you want to beat the heat. So everybody's having to adjust. The two famous words right now are, stay tuned.
Back to the hair thing, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because my mom was a hairdresser for over 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And, she's not alive anymore, but if she was still alive, I often kind of think, I've been thinking about what would she do. The problem is you got to, you have the cosmetology board, licensing governing board that, governs that profession. And so it's going to be up to them. However, what was interesting, a friend of mine showed me some pictures from 1918 that his relatives out of his family had from here in San Diego. And if recall, in 1918, that was the Spanish flu. There were barbers cutting hair outside. I've seen pictures of this.
Wow.
Of barbers here in San Diego cutting hair in San Diego outside during the 1918, 1919 years. So it's, like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens and see what kind of ruling the cosmetology board, whatever it's called, comes up with. Because let's just say, these nail salons or whatever, hair salons, barbershops, make it sanitary, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the sanitary issues. Mm-hmm. Make it safe and sanitary, outside. If they can do, if they can follow all the guidelines that are set forth by the Board of Cosmetology, then be it. I think they should be able to go outside.
Totally.
I don't know. I mean, but it's going to be really interesting. I know everybody's talking about these restaurants should protest and whatnot. Well, problem is Newsom's come out and threatened taking away of liquor licenses. Liquor licenses are pretty much the backbone to the majority of these restaurants. I mean, right there's a ton of money in revenue earned with a liquor license. But a lot of these restaurants, like here in Lakeside, the Bull Weevil, they have the outdoor patio seating now. So these businesses, they got to get smart and think differently.
Oh yeah, they're doing that even out here in the backcountry, the Descanso Junction, right there when you start. What they've done now is they've opened their patio and back, and like you say, you have to get creative. But I did want to, another thing I wanted to talk about becomes something that's right around the corner. The San Diego Padres, just so people know, first real game, assuming we get the season going, is 10 days from now. It's on Friday, July 24th against the Arizona Diamondbacks at 6:10. There's 2 exhibition games next week, though. On Monday at 6:10, the Angels are down here. And on Wednesday at 6:40, the Padres are up in Anaheim playing the Angels. Just so people know, because people are starved for sports now, these games will be on Fox Sports San Diego. Again, Monday at 6:10 here against the Angels. Next Wednesday, 6:40 up there against the Angels. What's interesting is how they're doing the road games, because on the road games, Fox Sports San Diego will actually be doing the road games with the announcers at Petco Park. Same thing with 97.3 The Fan. The radio announcers will be doing the Padres road games from Petco Park, basically watching them off a monitor. So that's going to be really interesting to see how all that goes. It'll be interesting to see how this guy, how Fernando Tatis Jr. does, because obviously he's one of the people being talked about the most in all the Major League Baseball stations, as definitely one of the future stars in this great game.
Yeah, hopefully the broadcasts go better than the Korean baseball broadcast, because holy smokes, those first few. I mean, I don't know what it's been like, recently, because I honestly don't watch it. But I watched the first 2, and don't get me wrong, I liked the announcers, but it was a cluster. So hopefully, they get they learned, they watched and learned, and now the broadcasters will be in the same room, right?
Correct. They will. The broadcasters for both Fox Sports San Diego on TV and then on 97.3 The Fan Radio, they will be in the same booth for road games at Petco Park as they will be for home games at Petco Park. And they're talking about several things they're talking about, like at home games, or even talking about maybe putting stuffed animals in the seat, piping in crowd noise, stuff like that. On the road games, one of the things they discussed, just for atmosphere, because again, you're going to have the announcers and those of us on the crew sitting there by ourselves at Petco Park on road games with it's one thing when the games are funny, but another thing that's on the road. They're talking about possibly opening up what's now called Gallagher Square, which we know as Petco's Park in the Park, where possibly people would be out there in the park on road games, so at least you got a little bit of noise in the background. They can watch the game, on the big screen out there. Those are things that are being talked about, because again, the biggest thing is, Ramon and Adam, is going to be atmosphere or lack of such with no fans there.
Well, yeah, I was reading a couple of the comments, a couple of the people who were out there watching the quote-unquote summer camp stuff, summer camp going on. One of them said that the Padres, or whoever, I think it was the Padres, obviously, were practicing piping in canned crowd noise, and they said it sounded really weird. They said it sounded really weird. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. If they allow fans, charge a couple bucks, so they can buy merchandise and hot dogs and drinks, and make it a thing, man. Obviously you're only going to allow a certain amount of people out there, obviously. So just go with it.
And again, that's for road games only. Of course, at the home games, people will not be allowed out there, because with the games going on, they're being really careful about, basically the only people on the first level at the stadium will be the teams, the players, the coaches, managers, the staff. That's it. I mean, media and all, which used to come in on that same level the players do now, we come in way out in left center field. You take an elevator out there, and then you go up to the second level on the Toyota Terrace and walk behind home plate to your seats. So basically, they're keeping the players a good distance away from the people. That's why, of course, Gallagher Square, or let's say Park of the Park, would only be open for road games. You can't do that at home games, because it'd be like having people in the stadium, which you're not supposed to have.
Which is outdoors. Yeah. So what's the point of all these regulations? Now, I don't want to sit here and argue about it, but we're letting people do things outdoors. And I'm not here sitting there. I just want to get the game started. Sports about to save our psyche from this, not only the pandemic, but the social disappointment that we're all experiencing right now. I mean, fortunately, these leagues, maybe it'll motivate some of these other organizations that we want sports to resume at, such as preps or some of the things that at the colleges and things like that. The pros are about to fire up. I mean, there's one day they listed in August, Adam. You might have saw that on Twitter. Somebody put out a list of I think it's August 4th. It's a Monday or something like that. And from, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., there's 5 major sports rolling off one game after another. Mm-hmm. Every 10 to 15 minutes, a new game starts. We always joke about that. Oh, there's one day a year where, the NFL's in their early season and the other teams are playing playoffs or something like that. And all the sport, you're about to get it. And it's going to bring a little bit of enjoyment, I think, for a lot of us hardcore sports fans. But, man, I mean, it's supposed to be going to do outdoor activities, even in these regulations that California's passing, saying, we can't go inside. But the stadium is outside. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking this. I just want to see the games get underway, and I think they're going to. It's funny that we talk about all the regulations that these other sports are going through. They joked about the NBA getting all these tests and things like that. One player said, I'm taking my 20th COVID test in 30 days or however long they've been out there in training now in Florida. And to me, the professional sports are going overboard in how much the precautions they're taking compared to the general public. The 85% of the public that are employed and have already kind of gone back to work for the most part. I know these recently enforced regulations starting out are going to cut down a little bit on the people that are working, but a lot of people are back at work, interacting with people, doing it with masks indoors. The professional sports are kind of going to the extreme a little bit. They're really paranoid to a certain extent when, quite frankly, I'm not sure any of these highly trained professional athletes are going to suffer much in the pandemic physically, like older people and people who are sick and have comorbidities. So, I don't know. Sometimes we ignore the obvious signs of who's getting COVID. No, I know there's transmission. I know that we don't want to spread. And that's why a lot of these athletes are deciding they don't want to go back because they have newborn babies or they're taking care of their older parents or grandparents. And that's all valid. Everybody can make their own decision about this. But
it's really
again,
weird.
we know who's getting sick and we know who's suffering the most. So
we
want to get outside. We want to do sports.
Yeah, exactly, Ramon. That's the thing. I mean, you do want, people want sports. And I'll tell you what, I know one thing. I mean, once baseball gets going, there will be a lot of baseball on TV. Like the Padres, for instance, they're going to be on national TV 5 times, all games on FS1, but they're going to be 5 of their 60 games, so almost 10% of their games are going to be on FS1 as well as, Fox Sports San Diego. And I mean, you look at the things like FS1, you look at their programming or lack of such during the day now and all, they're just, they're just nothing there. So people are just can't wait to get these games on TV. I know, for instance, our second game in San Diego on Saturday, July 25th against the Diamondbacks at 6 o'clock. That's on FS1. On opening night, you get the 2 games on ESPN with the Yankees, New York Yankees and the Washington Nationals and the San Francisco Giants at the LA Dodgers. So, again, the networks are just going nuts. They have no programming. So baseball is going to give them that. And, of course, with ESPN, the NBA is going to give them that too. Although I will say, I like, as a normal person, so to speak, as someone who works the games, a lot better the way baseball is doing it theoretically, because at least you can go home every night. The NBA, you're stuck down there for 3 months where, Rondo from the Lakers says his room's like a Motel 6, although a Motel 6 to them is like a Marriott to us, I mean, they have no clues. These guys have so much money. The story I've told before about a lady I knew that years ago dated one of the Chargers, and he couldn't understand when she'd say something like, I can't afford that new car, much less that new furniture, much less that new TV. These guys have no clue when it comes to money, but they do have a clue when it comes to health. And like you're saying, Ramon, I mean, I think these guys are very healthy. And as you know, you're our coronavirus guy. The rates have been very, very low, like in the MLB testing. Wasn't it maybe like a 1.2% that had COVID? Wasn't that about the rate?
Something like that, yeah. But if Buster Posey just opted out, isn't going to play, so it's going to be interesting to see what other big time guys. I mean, if Mike Trout doesn't play for the Angels this year, I mean, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, I don't know. So, like I said, I don't know. So, let's not forget. Tonight, I'll bring this up. Tonight was supposed to be the All-Star game up at up the I-5 freeway up in LA, and I was listening to when I was on my way home from work tonight. They were talking about it 50 years ago today, Pete Rose and his famous knockdown of Ray Fosse in the 1970s. And they said they were just bringing it up because it was tonight was supposed to be the night of the All-Star game up in Los Angeles. So.
Yeah, and it's funny, speaking of the LA area, like you mentioned, Mike Trout. I mean, obviously his case is his wife's pregnant, is going to have a baby during the season, during the 60-game season. So there's a risk there. And Adam and Ramon, one thing I'm concerned about, I mean, if Mike Trout opts out, the best player in baseball, that's what could really start a chain reaction. I mean, when you get the biggest star opted out, that could really, mean a lot. I mean, Buster Posey's still a big name, not as big a name as he was when he won, the 3 world championships with the Giants. But again, in his case, him and his wife just adopted 2 baby girls that were born prematurely. So again, most of the guys opted out so far. There's health issues. Jordan Hicks, the Cardinals closer, has diabetes. But then again, you get the guys, the Nick Markakises and the Ian Desmonds and guys like that, who are simply opting out because they just don't want to take the risk. So there, again, cases there. Some guys opted out because of health issues, and others just because of health issues that are already there, and others because of health issues that may become if they stick around for 2 or 3 months.
Posey's was family related, I heard. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Chris Krajewski, who we've had on the show, just mentioned in Philadelphia, and Chris, thanks for passing that along. I did see where the Eagles and the Phillies have said no fans. They've already said that in Philadelphia. Chris, we appreciate you checking in and passing that along because that is true, and that seems to be the case, not everywhere though, but places like Philadelphia already announcing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was some just talk about some of the Padres opponents may be in locales that will have some fans in the stands when those games arrive. There's opportunity for social distancing in big stadiums, obviously. And the Padres at first were like, we had some comments. I listened to Tingler. We'll have him in a second talk about some of the other things. But they said, it would kind of disadvantage if the other stadiums have fans. But then they thought about it and said, we'll take fans wherever we can get them, wherever we can have an atmosphere with some fans in it. Whether they're for or against us, we're for fans in the stands cheering or booing. We want to see that because that's a sign of good health for that community. And moving forward, a lot of this is going to be regional. So as much as we talk about the hot spots of California, Arizona, Texas, where opponents of the Padres are, some of those other cities, especially back east, it almost looks like the pandemic is kind of flown across the country a little bit, but still not as strong as it was when we had such unfortunate results up in the Northeast. But their totals are strongly down. We're fighting through all this. We don't know if we're having an extremely lethal spike here, or people are going to get sick. People are going to, lose some people, unfortunately. But there are other parts of the country where things are looking up big time, especially considering where we were in March. So there might be some of these stadiums where there will be fans, and that'll be neat, and that'll be awesome. Like Steve said, probably not here yet. Also, one other note, Steve, I'm talking about some of these Padres broadcasts, and if you're desperate to see this team, just this B-roll, my eyes are glued to the screen, Steve, just seeing them in training. But tomorrow and Thursday, the 2 inter-squad scrimmages will be on Padres.com. You can actually watch
Yeah.
scrimmages. They're tired of playing each other already, but I don't think we'll mind watching a
Well,
little bit of action. We've seen some interesting things happen over the few games that the Padres have played against each other so far. They've also played one game, I think, at USD. One of these games, they're sending players to USD as kind of like a secondary local camp. But some nice things have happened so far in some of these inter-squad games that can really get fans looking positive about this team. Mackenzie Gore, he gave up a couple runs, but said he wasn't feeling his best. And when he talked to Eric Hosmer about not feeling great, and Hosmer said, if that's how you're going to throw when you're not feeling great, then you're going to be in for a pretty good career. And that's coming from the veteran Hosmer.
Well, I guess I guess their little inter squad the other day, I guess it was at USD. Both Will Myers and Austin Hedges had a little home run derby at Fowler Park going on, according to what Braden Soprano, our good friend, tweeted out last night, the other night, on the night of what would have been the 2020 home run derby. So that's interesting. Hedges went 3 for 3 with the home run. Also, Will Myers went 3 for 3 with 2 home runs. Machado doubled. Takupita Marcano went 2 for 3 with a home run and 3 RBIs. And Lamet struck out 10 over 5 innings. That was tweeted out by Jeff Sanders.
Yeah, and anybody who saw Lamet and saw the descriptions of him really spent a lot of this time working out. He looks like a free safety out there.
Right.
Yeah, he's ready. Yeah. Lamet's interesting, though, because he does that. He'll strike out 10 people, but his issue still is inconsistency, though, because he'll pitch 5 innings and have 4 innings where he's lights out and just have that one bad inning. You don't want him to get in that, the syndrome that Luis Perdomo used to have, where he would pitch 6 innings and give up 5 runs all in the same inning. The other 5 innings would be great. I think Lamet's stuff is just electric. I mean, he'll certainly be in there. I think the way they're going to go, of course, Chris Paddock's going to pitch opening day. They haven't announced that, but you got to think it's him first. You think Garrett Richards will be second. Third will be either Lamet or Zach Davies. They'll be 3 and 4. 5 is going to be Joey Lucchesi most likely, and then Cal Control can give you innings in the bullpen. But as you guys know, the innings in the bullpen are going to be really, really critical early on because starting pitchers they won't have great length. I mean, the Matt Stroms and the Cal Quantros and those guys, so you give you 3 innings out of the bullpen are really going to be valuable, especially to start, because your starter may only go 4 innings.
One name I heard that could actually get some action this year, Adrian Morejon, could end up on this club and get a few innings. That should be exciting from the 21-year-old. Let's talk about that rotation. Let's hear. We have some comments from Garrett Richards. I think we can hear this. We had some audio difficulties earlier. It's all on my end, but see if we can get these comments in from Richards, who's going to be entrenched in that rotation. It's actually looking like a very interesting rotation for a 60-game schedule. I mean, you got to figure all these guys are going to get 10 or 11 starts, and you're going to have to sprinkle some other starts in there. Let's see if we get Richards in here.
Oops, no audio.
I don't think we're hearing him. But
okay.
No.
We tried, but I know Garrett was talking today. One of the things he's talking about, he's 2 years now. He had Tommy John 2 years ago, and he's just now feeling like he's there. Like he said, nobody wanted this to happen, to start late the way it has and all, but for him, it's partially been a blessing in disguise because they basically say at the 2-year mark is where you're 100% over the Tommy John, and right now he's at the 2-year mark. So hopefully he'll do well because with the Angels, he was hurt a lot up there, but when he did pitch, again, the word they use with Lamet, he could also be very electric. I mean, Garrett Richards can be lights out when he's on.
Yeah, I mean, if you look statistically and where this whole rotation is, he'd actually be number 5 in the rotation, I would think. But because of his experience and his leadership, he's probably a number 2 guy at this point behind Paddock. I like where this roster stands all of a sudden. You talked about the energy of Tommy Pham. I mean, that's going to be an exciting guy to have in that lineup. And, I think Tatis can get to 10 home runs. on this 60-game schedule and be a power and RBI guy too. Boy, it's exciting. Just get this sports going, man. I mean, as much as I'm bummed out about what's going on the local level of sports, maybe this will kind of save some of the anguish that we're all having a little bit about things not going our way, not going as fast as we'd like them to go. As I predicted they would go. Yeah, I got egg on my face.
Yeah,
But,
no.
I still feel pretty good that just got to get through this, man. This sucks.
Now, Ramon, we're getting a question here from Andrew Darrell asks, Ramon, has anybody heard anything yet about youth sports?
Canceled. That's already long gone. The only people that are not obeying anything is here in San Diego. Everywhere else, they're not supposed to be doing anything. The state came out. There was an article about this in the Sacramento Bee, and we've talked about I don't know about not with you guys, but I've talked about this with others, and the clarification was the state came out and said that they shouldn't have fallen under the day camp guidelines. So, these people that are letting this thing going on here in San Diego, in our county, no offense, but and don't get me wrong, I like Christian Gaspar and everything. It's one of those things, they're just holding on, but they've been canceled everywhere else.
Yeah, it's tough.
And, to the person who put that up there with the emoji, I'm just telling it like it is. We had this discussion last night with a bunch of other coaches who are in another sport who do use sports. So
yeah, I think what we're looking at really is the politicians want to protect themselves in a way. They don't want to be responsible for any terrible things that are obviously going to still occur. So, you feel the pressure to protect people. I mean, you look at, there's been a lot of bad things, terrible things that have happened, and it weighs on the shoulders of people. We even saw that during the demonstrations and things like that, how it weighs on these politicians' shoulders. So kind of want to take ultra precautions, but the evidence would point to the fact that the same demographic keeps getting sick and suffering the unfortunate circumstances, and that's who we need to protect and keep out of harm's way while we try to save our psyche, save the economy, and things like that, with people who are not going to suffer the same consequences. So I don't know, just a guy here talking to you guys, but that's the way it seems. And as these days go by, hopefully the pro sports will get everybody motivated and see that things are kind of safe. I mean, we've seen, hey, you know what? 2 local teams have already played games in professional sports. And the San Diego Loyal soccer team won their game. Well, they won. The other team scored 2 goals, but San Diego won 1-0.
Yeah, exactly.
They won their game in Utah, but it was cool. And the Aviators beat their rival, the Orange County Breakers. So pro sports is back on the way.
Where are they playing? Now, where are they playing the Aviators tennis matches?
Aren't they back like Philadelphia or somewhere back east? Ramon, do you know? I know they were on TV today. And just so people know, the Aviators are world team tennis, by the way, just so people know. But I believe they're playing those games somewhere back east, which is kind of funny because, it's not like a whole lot of people in San Diego care about them to begin with, and they're playing back there called San Diego. And it's funny, too, the soccer game last Saturday when the Loyal played up in Salt Lake City or in suburban Salt Lake City, they said they could allow up to 5,000 fans in a 20,000-seat stadium. And they were about 4,990 fans short of 5,000 from what I saw on TV. There was nobody.
They only had 100 people in the stands.
Maybe.
Wow. I'm watching these the NASCAR races, and looking at they're allowing 5,000 fans or whatever in the stands depending on where they're at, and they seem to be doing okay. I mean, they got the social distancing thing going on. I was watching some other race that my roommate was watching the other night. sorry, I don't remember what it was, but it was back in the Midwest, and they had a few thousand fans in the stands, and they were doing social distancing and everything. So it's just interesting to see these experiments that these different associations and sports are doing. Allowing the number of fans, whether it be capped at 5,000 or whatever, a percentage or whatever of population for whatever venue that they happen to be doing their thing in.
And Adam, another sport that's actually had people, I noticed last weekend, one that I watch sometimes at PBR, the Professional Bull Riders.
Yes.
Last weekend, they had one. They've been doing, with no fans, but this past weekend, I'm not sure where they were, but they had fans. They were social distance, and it just having noise in the background. Because even, as you know, Adam and I have both watched, pro wrestling in the past. I'll still watch the Good Show on Wednesday night, All Elite Wrestling. AEW, right. What they do, they have a bunch of wrestlers in the background yelling and screaming. Just something to have atmosphere, because when the other show, the WWE, the big one, first came back, it was like they were in a vacuum. You'd have two guys wrestling, grunting and groaning with no noise. You have to have some sort of noise in the background. That's why even as bad as it probably sounds at Petco Park, you got to have some sort of atmosphere when the Padres play there. I don't know. What
I had a disagreement in this one, and I tweeted out this week, I think that fake crowd noise is, I think the ambiance should reflect the times. I mean, we have an empty stadium; it's for a reason. Have more crowd mics. I mean, more field mics. Let's hear what those guys say. I mean, it's kind of tough because I was watching the other night a Major League Soccer game with the field mics only, and it could be a rather vulgar experience.
Yeah,
but it is what it is. I mean, these are adults. And they're playing championship sports. I mean, these guys are competing for titles out there, especially coming up in these NBA, NHL, who baseball starts their season. Everybody's talked about, will there be an asterisk? Yeah, there'll be an asterisk. Everybody said that'll be the team that won in 2020, and you know what that was all about.
Yeah, just like 2017, there should be an asterisk for the Houston Astros. But that being said, Ron, one thing I was going to ask, remember when they did the NFL draft, how they had the virtual fans in the background cheering? What would it be like at Petco Park if you could have like 50 people at home on the scoreboard, virtual fans cheering? So it's actual cheering, it's actual noise. Or you might hear a little bit from Annie Heilbrunn had the really good story in the UT the other day about fans who live around Petco Park that can actually watch the games. I mean, I don't know how much noise they can make, and they're not that close. But what about, instead of piped-in noise, having actual noise virtually?
I like that. There's been, the Dodgers, other teams talking about selling the cardboard cutouts for charity, and I think it's great.
Yeah, the Giants.
It'd be cool to see your image back there behind the thing. But I wouldn't mind if these teams are so rich, put some big screens back there, let them do those virtual stands like you see if you watch the English Premier League soccer games. When the team scores, they always cut away to the little Brady Bunch 9 box. You see people cheering in the background, right, for their goal. Or if people are pre-approved, and so they don't say anything crazy, they could have cheering or something. I don't know how that would work, but I think it'd be neat anyway to get these fans more involved in the games, because we're going to be getting an onslaught of sports here in just a few days, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's going to be fast and furious if you're a big sports fan that like to watch all the games from all the sports, especially come playoff time.
Yeah, because
it's going to be fun, and it's going to be important. And like I said, hopefully, Adam, just seeing teams play successfully. There'll be reports of COVID. People will be taken out of action, I guess, for a couple of days or a week or two. They'll come back and say, hey, good job. We're going to fight that COVID. I've had friends who we used to talk about, do you know anybody? Yeah, I guess I do know people now that have gotten COVID and gotten better. People that I would be concerned with that might have had some, health conditions, and they fought through it and did, great job. So, prayers to anybody who's been affected by this, especially those who have lost loved ones. But still, the stats are all the same. I'm going to keep rolling back to those statistics and why we should try to move forward, get ready to move forward, because this can't talk. Chris said in the chat, is this the first wave or the second wave? It just looks like some COVID to me, and hopefully it's wearing down, wearing out.
I've heard, weird idea, weird things about the COVID and the testing and all that. I mean, it's, I tell you what, PJ brings up a great idea. I just thought of this, reading that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were watching back in the day, but WCW Wrestling, the one that was owned by Ted Turner back in the day, they used to have contests on Monday nights for Monday Nitro, and people would have big parties, and you would send in your video or whatever of your Monday Nitro party, and if you were picked, they would send out Mean Gene Okerlund or whoever, and they would broadcast live from your house the following Monday or something like that. Just like take his idea and make it kind of like the old WCW Monday Nitro parties, but you would make it a contest. Now, obviously, you're gonna encourage it to where it's socially distanced and whatnot. You don't want a huge old party of 100 people, but within regulations, because I think they're going to need something like that to boost morale, I think.
Well, I'm going to need something like that. I mean, if we don't have prep sports going, I have a job in the daytime, and I like to accumulate prep sports information and turn them into stories on the internet. That's what I've done for a long time. And
same here.
If I don't get to do that, I'm going to have some time on my hands, so we might have our own show right here of me watching the game, yelling and screaming at Tingler or the players or whatever. Mm-hmm. Might have our own Padres show with me getting mad because I'll be so bored. I'll sit here and watch sports, watch the Padre games, and see if we can't win a World Series.
I mean, like I said, I've heard some weird things in the last couple of days about the COVID and the testing, and I'm just like, just want to watch sports.
Yeah.
I was watching TV the other night. They had an ad on the add-on for the upcoming NBA season on ESPN, and I'm like, finally, some sort of normalcy,
Yeah, I don't think that all the politicizing of these sports leagues getting back together, some of the other things that are going on with some of these leagues. I mean, look at some of the weird controversies. Who'd have thought that such a highly regarded reporter like Adrian Wojnarowski would get into hot water calling out a politician in an email and get suspended? I mean, but crazy things are happening. And
the politician had a legitimate question, concern, and it's this whole thing has just made people go bonkers.
Well, right, and what one person thinks, though, Adam, is a legitimate question is sometimes offensive to the people who are getting asked the question.
But everything's offensive nowadays. Everybody gets offended nowadays. I'm offended. I'm offended that people get offended and everything. I mean, really. I mean, the question he asked was legitimate. I mean, if that had been asked from the other way, it would have been fine. I mean, people got to get over. Just. Everybody's offended by everything. My goodness, that's one thing I like about up here in Alpine. We just live our life. We live slow, easy lives, but you're not offended that that Adam was driving 2 miles too fast and waved with his left hand instead of his right hand, and that offended me. Too much.
Now PJ wants you to get in trouble, and I want you guys to say the wrong thing at the wrong moment. We should have PJ on here today to give us his opinion of the Washington football team.
Wait, what is it?
Change. I'm saying it very slow. Oh, we don't know yet.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, did I miss something?
Suggestions. All we know is what the Washington football team. I'm saying it like that on purpose.
Well, I think they should.
I see about what their last.
Well, you know what I think. And I saw this on social media, and I think it's kind of a cool idea. Would be to call themselves the Washington Code Talkers. Do you know what the code talkers were?
Of course I do, but I mean,
Okay.
again, you're bringing into stereotypes. Even some of the great suggestions have stereotypes in them that are just, I mean, look, I'm fond of the Red Tails. I
Right.
thought
Yeah,
the honor
I thought
of
that
the
was a good idea.
Tuskegee Airmen
Sure.
would be incredible. It might be, they're talking about a big thing, a big splash. To me, that would be the biggest. How they would depict the Tuskegee Airmen on the side of the helmet, or would it be like looking like a leather helmet, just a plain, and not having the imagery? Because, of course, as great as it is to honor them, you're replacing this imagery with this imagery. As great as the airmen were and the heroes that they were, we're trying to get away from depictions of humans for sports teams, right? No matter what the demographic, right?
Yeah, Ramon. Everybody, since people,
am I getting in trouble here?
no, you're not. But I'm going to get in trouble here because again, every name seems to be offensive. So I think we need to name them all after animals. You got to be an eagle. You got to be a jaguar. You got to be a squirrel. You got to be a chicken. Because I don't know. I don't know if
with a hawk.
But I don't know if the animals can. The animals, I don't know if they can speak out. I'm sure somebody will speak out on their behalf. But I mean, it seems like everybody's offended by every name now. I mean, I love my high school, the El Capitan Vaqueros. If you look at the logo, somebody's probably offended by the way that cowboy looks.
Right? I mean, all of these.
Well, again, I just heard today the new one that these people here here in San Diego are mad at or have in discussion about is the El Cajon Valley Braves.
Oh yeah,
really? Come on.
That'll come up next. There's 18 teams in California that are like Indians or Braves in the CIF, and that's
well. Get this, my alma mater, Santana, is under attack.
The
Sultan. I'm just telling you what I've heard in discussions.
Yeah, and of course Ramon's alma mater. The one thing I love about Helix, the Highlanders, is how they play Amazing Grace before every game. At some point somebody's going to get offended by that, and some year Helix ain't going to be able to play Amazing Grace. It's like I keep saying, people, let's get offended about stuff that really matters. Let's just get offended by.
And as Chris Kajusi says, I guess we have too many teams with the same animal logos. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, there are. Go ahead, Ramon.
This is something that has been coming to a heed for a long time. I mean, Washington's the only team that has kind of a pigmentation is the name, right? That probably's got to go. Probably can't have a skin pigmentation as the name of a team. I think that's the difference between the naming of this sports team and some of the other Native American-based sports teams. There are definitely organizations that are against the naming of teams, especially those that are named after specific tribes, for example, or still has some of the imagery of Native Americans in their logos and things like that.
Yeah, but if you the hits close to home is SDSU.
Yeah.
It seems like freaking every damn year for the last 20-something years, there's been one of these wackadoodle groups, claiming, it's discriminatory, it's racist, blah blah blah. I can totally remember, not the last one a couple years ago, but probably about 10 years ago or so, when they had the big one, the group on campus, Metcha, was terrorizing people and groups that were against them. I swear to God, guys, I remember listening to sports talk radio here in San Diego late at night or, in the evening, and Metcha would call in and basically try and bully anybody that freaking, disagreed with them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And our SCSU alumni guys have done a phenomenal job. Your guy out here, our East County guy, Carlos, what's his last name? Yeah, Carlos Gutierrez.
Out of El Cap.
Yeah, out of El Cap, man. He portrayed Monte Montezuma with passion and pride, and it's just one of those things I just don't understand. And of course, to come to find out, the knucklehead guy that was in one of the big dudes within the opposition group a couple years ago, got suspended by campus for making racial comments in class.
Yeah, well, Adam, it's interesting because I know at San Diego State years ago when they got rid of Monte Montezuma, they had students vote, and 95% of the students said keep him.
Yes.
And yet it came to President Weber's discussion and got rid of him. I mean, again, it's the political correctness out there. I don't even want to get started on political correctness out there because I lived it for 16 years.
Right.
Out there, you're allowed to say anything you want as long as it fits the political correctness. But
put PJ's comment on if you can, Monty, because that's a good one.
Well, and that's what I've talked about. Here's the funny thing: you look at that. The Aztec helmet currently, as beautiful as it is, and it's got that.
It's got the Aztec calendar
on it, right? And if you look at what's in the center of an Aztec calendar, is a depiction of a crude depiction, but that's how we've seen how the Aztecs had those great portraits of communicating that they did hundreds of years ago, but there's still depiction on that necessarily. So it's a fine line.
But the thing is though, is that in every book, everything that I've ever read of Aztecs, they were warriors. They were brutal. I mean, come on. And these people, they want us to San Diego State to not have that. That's changing history, folks. You can't change history. I'm sorry. And, I have all my dad's old school SDSU memorabilia with the strong depiction of Monte Montezuma. It's great. And for anybody to say otherwise, you're knuckleheads. And I'm sorry. You are.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Adam, when I worked at San Diego State, they were getting stuff in my office, and there was a Monte Montezuma ashtray. I don't smoke, but I've got that ashtray right here because it has Monte Montezuma on it. But anyway, I don't know where we get off on this discussion. I want to go back in. We're just about
sorry. Off the air, and we don't even have anybody supervising us.
Yeah. I think we're going to be okay. I think the FCC is going to be fine with us.
But no, going back to what we were originally talking about, with community college, obviously the community college is pushing everything back to spring. That's going to be really interesting. I just hope that, if these sports seasons start, they're able to finish.
Yes.
That's what I hope.
Kind of like even Major League Baseball, Adam, because sadly, if Major League Baseball starts and doesn't finish, what a blow that would be to America, I think, because, if baseball can start and finish, I think that would just give people hope.
Yes.
One thing that's going to stop these leagues is a massive outbreak of COVID-19 within the league that affects the credibility of the competition moving forward, where the best players are getting knocked out or something like that right at the key moment. Could you imagine if some of the star players a week from the playoffs from several teams were testing positive? They might have to put a suspension or something like that. But if it's just one or two here and there, and kind of like with society.
But hold on. Yeah. I'll get hold on. If let's say the New York Yankees have the best record in Major League Baseball, and all of a sudden somebody like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton test positive, are you kidding me? That negates everything. I'm sorry, and I am being biased on that because I am a huge Yankees fan, and that does negate things a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's going to be. But anyway, hey, you guys, we're out of time. We've got our hour in. Just if I could remind people of a couple things. Next Monday, July 20th, will be the official day that the California CIF announces just how we are or not going to proceed this year. And a reminder, San Diego Padres, 2 exhibition games next week that will be on Fox Sports San Diego. Monday at 6:10 at home against the Angels. Wednesday, 6:40 on the road against the Angels. And real games, Friday, July 24th, 6:10 p.m., Padres, Arizona Diamondbacks on Fox Sports San Diego, and also on our friends on 97.3 The Fan on radio. Guys, hey, thanks so much for a good show tonight. I think we covered a lot tonight. We want to thank, all those who weighed in tonight, too, with their comments. Thank you so much for being with us. And Ramon, once again, great job putting this together. And Adam, once again, great job certainly joining our discussion. You've been great. Thank you so much. And for everybody out there, have a great night, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. Good night, everybody.